Hello creative people, this is Catherine with the Motley Art, and I have another video for She's Crafty mini pad class that I'm participating in. This is sketch 5, week 5, and in the description you will find the link to her video, and in her video she shows you the sketch that we're using for this week. I will also have a playlist on my channel, so if you want to check that out, it has all of the weeks so far, and this is a 10-week class. So I decided to switch up my background for this week, and I'm using Bella Blvd's Kiss Me from 2012 that I have had in my stash since then. So many years this has been waiting for the light of day. I just think it's so cute. I love those mustaches. They're adorable. So I'm still using the Recollections Valentine. I'm still going along with some Valentine themes. I'm having so much fun with the Valentines and this color scheme of the pink and gray and a little bit of blue. I really love it. It's just so pretty. So I thought we're just going to continue on. So in this sketch, there's some layered elements on the right hand side, so I picked out that paper with the bingo cards to use as those elements. And this whole video I'm showing you the complete process. I did speed it up, so this is showing it at 2 times the speed. I do not work this quickly, and it took me roughly about 30 minutes to make this layout, but I'm showing you the whole thing from start to finish. So I saw the sketch this morning. I took several minutes as I was eating my breakfast to think about the sketch, to kind of think about how I can adapt it to a 6x6 instead of a 12x12. But then that's all I did. That was all the pre-thought that I did this week. Instead of cutting things out like I had done previous weeks, I just thought I'd take you through the whole steps and just show you my whole process. So I went ahead and cut that paper down so that I could have those individual elements, and I also cut out that strip of hearts in the middle in a strip because I did initially think that I was going to use it on this sketch. So I wanted it to be one long strip so it could go the whole 6x6. So now I'm going to start playing around with my elements and trying to see how I'm going to layer things up. And this sketch is very simple, but these bingo cards took me so long to figure out how I wanted to have them laid down there. It's only 3 little bingo cards. How could it take you so long? But you know, sometimes that's the things that take you the longest, is just fiddling with those little elements to get them exactly where you want them placed. So I went ahead and I cut down that gray paper, and it says love on it over and over and over again in little text. And I'm making that into a tag because that is part of the sketch. So this element is 2.5 by 3.5, and I just used one of my punches to cut off the edges there. That makes it look like a tag. So once I put the tag on, I realized that hearts are not going to work. You're just not going to see them. It just seemed like a wasted element because they were going to be hidden so much. So I figured I would save that and use that on a different sketch at some point. So now I'm going to punch in the hole for my tag because I just don't think it looks like a tag unless you have a hole in it. That's the way I feel about it. And so I'm using my crocodile there to punch in, and I'm using the biggest hole setting. And I just go ahead and punch that out. And I will end up putting some twine in there as well. In fact, I believe that's what I'm going to pick up right now. Yep. And this is some red burlap style trim, so it's kind of fuzzy. I thought that would be fun and give a little extra texture, and I'm just trying to figure out here how much I want to cut off. So I'm going to get that cut off, and then that's going to basically finish off that particular element, right? And that is where, once I have decided what picture I'm going to put on to this layout, I think that's where I will add my journaling. And I will either just cut out a smaller piece of paper to write on and then just kind of put it on top, or I might even do maybe some like strips, write out, or go onto my computer and print out the items that I want and then kind of cut them out on strips. So we will see that for later once I actually have the picture that I want to put on here. At this point, I'm just doing a bunch of Valentine inspired layouts, but I don't have any pictures yet to put on them. But I am thinking about maybe trying to grab some pictures from my family this year. Even though we won't be together around Valentine's, we can maybe get some selfies from different people and put them on these layouts. So I am just fiddling some more with exactly where I want to put these elements, and I have to say that is sometimes what takes the longest. Is you know what you want, but you can't quite figure out how you want to put it down, and that's okay. That's part of the process, and you just have to take your time and just keep going with it until you can find the look you're going for. I mean, I even there tried to angle one of the cards, thinking maybe that would look better if I put it on an angle, but I did not like that. So finally, I think to myself, you know what the issue is? These bingo cards are just not big enough. That's it. They're just not big enough. I need them to be bigger. So I decide to mat them, and so I take a scrap from previous weeks, and I decide that's what I'm going to do, is put these onto that. I really loved this plaid paper that was in the pan that had the pinks and the gray and then some of the cream. It just looks really pretty. So I decided I wanted to trim down the bingo cards even more. They had kind of a little bit of a cream background on them, and I decided I didn't want that. I just wanted you to have the bingo card and then the plaid, so that this way I can make the elements a little bit bigger, and also it's going to give me some separation from my background, which I think will look really nice. So I'm just looking at it and just making my decisions, and decided that yes, this is what I wanted. And then I realized if I turned it, I could get 2 out of that scrap instead of just 1. So I went ahead and did that, and then I'm going to go ahead and put down those elements. And then once I've got those onto the scrap paper, I'm going to cut them out. Now, I did not measure anything at this point. I was not worried about if it was going to be the exact size. These elements are going behind my focal point, which is my photo mat. So you're not going to notice. You're not going to notice if one side is a little bit bigger than the other side. So I just didn't see the point in measuring everything out and trying to make sure that it's perfect. Everything doesn't have to be perfect. So I've gone ahead and made that one a little bit smaller too. And I did pull out, you could see, I have a little bucket on my desk that I use for, a trash can. Just so that it makes it a little bit easier when I'm in the middle of doing my crafting. It's just easier to throw it away up in there, and then I just dump that out every so often. So now I'm going to cut these out, and I am using a different trimmer this time. So I do have a couple of different trimmers. They are all Fisker trimmers because I absolutely love the Fiskars trimmers. I love the wire element in these trimmers. It just makes things so much easier. It makes it so much easier to know exactly where the blade's going to be cutting. I just love it. So I have this one, which the goes to about 5.5. So this is their smaller one, which is great when you're doing your smaller projects like greeting cards and these 6x6 layouts. But the only thing is you can't cut a 12x12 piece of paper on it. So it is, I think it goes to 9 inches wide. So it's fine for 8.5 by 11, which I use a lot. But as you can see, I do also have 12x12 paper. So that's why I need the larger one as well. So I have both of those to use for my trimming down my paper. So I realized then I did want to make sure that I had all of my elements backed, but I didn't have any more of that scrap, so I had to go look to see if I had another sheet, and I did. Thankfully, I had one more sheet of that plaid, so I was able to go ahead and mount this one on there as well. So I just did it the same as the other two. And I just glue it down first and then I cut it out. And even though it is pink on the front, there is enough cream and gray in the plaid to really still give you that separation of your elements. So I think it works really nice. I think they complement very well. So that's really the advantage of using one paper pad for all of your elements, is that you know the colors work with each other. They designed that to work with each other, and so it just makes one less decision, really. All you have to decide is which page you're using, not is this color going to work with that color. So I get those all cut out, and then I'm going to place everything back down again, try to get that final placement. And it does still take me a couple of minutes to kind of figure out how am I going to get these on there exactly. But once I start putting these elements down, I can tell that the size is good. It is what I was looking for. It definitely helped. So when you're building out your layouts, if something doesn't seem to be working, if it's an element that you really want to have on that layout but just doesn't seem to be looking the way you want it to, see what you can do about changing the size. Do you need to mat it to make it a little bit bigger, or do you need to cut it down? Maybe it's too big. And that, don't give up on it. See what you can do to make it work. So now I'm just giving this one more kind of fiddle with placement. And at this point, I really decide, yes, this is what I want. This is the look that I have been trying to achieve. So matting those pieces was perfect. So now I'm going to bring out a little bit of my recycled chipboard that I use to put on the back of my photo mats or other elements. Any element that I want to be a chipboard element, I just use this recycled chipboard. And most of it does come from cereal boxes because it's a nice weight. It is what you would consider a light chipboard weight, but you can easily just double it or triple it up. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to double it up so that I can get a nice firm photo mat and have it popped up a little bit, but without a ton of, I don't want it too high. I wanted it up a little bit, but not too high. So that's what I'm going to do now. And when I'm using this recycled chipboard, I like to glue the glossy part down first so that the matte side is what's going to adhere to the project. I just find it tends to adhere a little bit nicer to the overall project. So that's just how I like to use it. And I wanted a little bit more on that right side. I just felt that that was going to be too big of a gap to leave with nothing. So I just have to cut a couple pieces down, fit them up, and then I'm going to glue those down on top as well. So I am using wet glue for all of this. Now, I like tape runners. I do use them, but not for chipboard. For chipboard, I always go to my liquid glue. And again, you just want to make sure that you're putting enough glue, but you don't want to put too much glue, because that's what warps your paper. Is if you put too much, then it just ends up being too liquidy for the paper and it starts to warp. But so I'm going to put these elements down, and then I'm going to secure those background elements. But first I'm going to do a little cleanup. All right, clean up as we go, and then there's less to clean up at the very end. So I get those items aside, and now I'm going to look at this background one more time, and it is what I want. So because I fussed for so long with these elements, I did not want to pick them up to put the glue on the back. So that's why I'm just carefully kind of lifting them up a little bit, putting a little bit of glue on there, and then making sure they're straightened out. So I find I like to do it this way when I have things down that I really love the placement, and I'm too afraid that if I pick them up, I'm going to mess up the placement. Ultimately, that photo mat's going to go on top, so that's going to help to hold everything down. So I don't need to make sure that every little inch is glued. I just need to make sure that I have enough glue on there to keep them secure, and then the photo mat is going to help to secure them the rest of the way. So get those elements down, and then I'm going to go ahead and glue my photo mat down on top as well. And this photo mat is 3 1/4 by 4 1/4 for a 3 by 4 image. So that is what I thought would look great with this particular layout. And that way too, I can use a couple of different sizes. I think the last couple of layouts I've done squares, so I really wanted to go ahead with more of a rectangle this time. So I just go ahead and get that attached. And then I'm going to fiddle with this twine a little bit. So I tend to find that I like to go ahead and get the placement of my twine and then just tack it down with just a little bit of glue. Instead of just leaving it open to move around. I'd rather it be in one place that I think looks nice for the layout. So I'm going to put a little bit more glue on the tag itself, and then I'm going to tack down the twine. And I do see if I can kind of put it underneath the tag first, but I didn't like the way that looked. So I bring it back out and just tack it down. Again, not putting a ton of glue down, just a little bit, to be able to put that fibers into it. And the one thing that's nice about this Tombow glue is it does dry completely clear and kind of matte, so you don't get a real glossy shine right in that area. So I like that. So at this point, I'm really happy with the way that the layout is looking. I just think it looks really pretty. I love the elements. And so now I'm going to pull out some embellishments, because I looked at this and I thought it needs sparkle. It needs sparkle. So I brought out my pearls, but then I grabbed some of these sparkles that are gold, and they're kind of gold faceted from Close to My Heart. I just got these recently and I really, really like them. They also have them in silver, which I purchased as well, because that's how I like to embellish. A lot of times I like to embellish with metallics. So I like to use gold and silver as my bit of shine. And what's also nice is there's 2 different sizes that comes with this. So there's a larger size and then there's a smaller size. So I use both. I use a little bit of both. So you're just going to see me take a few minutes to figure out where I want to put those placements. And I just think it brings a little bit of shine and glitz to this particular layout, and I really like that. So it's going to take me a couple minutes to figure out where I want to place all of those, and then I'm also decide I am going to use some of the pearls as well. So I'm going to, at first it took me a couple minutes to decide, did I want to use the white pearls or did I want to use the red pearls? But ultimately I decided to go with the red ones because there is some of that dark red color in my papers, especially in the loved there on the bingo cards. So I just thought it would look better than using the whiter pearl. So I'm going to sprinkle some of those around as well. And then this is also will tie in with my previous couple of layouts also. So I get all that down and I decide, I'm looking at it and I think it just needs something else. I love the shine, I love the pearls, I love those elements, but it just feels like it needed a little bit more, especially in that bottom right hand corner. So I'm going to take some more scraps and I'm going to make a little more element to put down there. So the first thing that I do with the scrap that I pull out is I cut it down and I want to make it look like a ticket. So I just kind of cut a rectangle piece. Again, I'm not overly worried about the full size of it, so I just roughly cut it down to a rectangle, and then it's going to take me a moment to grab my punch that will do the stub punch to make it look like a ticket. And I just thought bringing in a little bit more gray would be nice because there's a good bit of pink on this element, on this layout. So I wanted to introduce a little bit more of that gray and just give a little bit more contrast to the overall composition. So like I said, it takes me a few minutes to get that out of the box that I have it in, and that little ATC album kind of falls down. I mean, I like to have that up in front of the box that I have some of my items in because it's pretty, and so I like to have a little bit of a pretty element up there, but of course I'm always knocking it down. So I just decided to go ahead and move it completely out of the way instead of putting it back in the same spot. So now I've got that tag created, so I'm going to kind of just fit it into that corner. I did look at the other side. I just thought, let's just check it out, see, but no, ultimately I wanted more of the gray. So it's the same paper as the tag element, so that's kind of nice, pulling that across the layout, which helps bring your eye across that layout. And then it also just helps balance the overall layout because it just wasn't balanced 100%. So it took me a couple minutes to get that element up there. So again, I didn't want to pull it out and then have to suffer trying to get it back in. I just lift it up a little bit and stick some glue down underneath of it. So we're going to get that on there, and I might have put a little too much glue this time because it did seep out a little bit, so I'm just make sure I get that excess up. And then from there I decide that I wanted to trim down the twine a little bit. I just thought it was a little too long, and then I'm still thinking that it needs just a few more pieces. So I still had some hearts from last week. So if you go to my channel, like I said, there is a playlist that I have for all of these sketches, and you can see last week I did a heart sketch, and so I still had some of those hearts left. I cut out more than what I needed, so I'm going to go ahead and add a few of those to this layout as well. Just again, I just felt like it just needed a little bit more down there at the bottom. And because I'm using all the same papers, again, it's very easy to incorporate these elements because I already had them cut out of the same papers, so all of my colors go together. And so it's just going to help to tie in all of these elements because it's bringing in a little bit more color from the mat itself. It's bringing in more of that plaid, and it's bringing in more of that dark red. So that's going to help make the whole composition of this layout come together. And that's another thing to keep in mind. It's easier to make sure that your composition looks good if you keep your color palette limited. If you try to use the same types of colors and just try to use about 4 to maybe 5 different colors, then everything blends in really nicely and you don't have to worry about why is this not working or why does that seem to pull out too much. So it just helps keep everything cohesive. And bringing in that gold sparkle pieces, if you notice, some of those mustaches in the back have kind of a gold tinge to them. They're a little bit of like a brown gold, so that worked that element in, and so then it even ties in with the background. It helps to bring all of that together. And so I get those hearts down and I'm like, it needs more sparkle. It needs more sparkle. So I bring out those gold sparkle bits and I add a few more onto the layout. And then I'm also going to add a few more of the pearls as well because I really felt like I wanted to have the contrast of the darker matte element with the shiny gold element. So I'm just gonna fiddle with that for a couple of minutes, and then I decide to bring a few of those up over to the tag as well. That way it just brings in that side of the layout, ties it in with the other side, makes a nice visual triangle, and just really helps your eye move around the whole layout. And at that point, I call it done. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Thank you for watching and have a creative day.